Everyone sees me as the spoiled daughter of a successful businessman, the one who never had to worry about money, and probably spends her days choosing between which designer handbag to take to lunch at the country club. If they knew I just discovered that my father is on the verge of bankruptcy and that our house could be auctioned off next week, maybe they'd change their opinion about Livia Ashworth. "Liv, sweetheart, we need to talk." Dad's voice sounded different when he called me into his office this Monday morning. There was something in his blue eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. I sat in the leather armchair that had welcomed me throughout my childhood, where he helped me with my math homework, and where he consoled me when I came home crying from my first disastrous date. But today, that familiar environment seemed charged with a tension that made my stomach churn. "What happened, Dad?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was already racing. He sighed deeply, running his hands through his graying hair that seemed to have aged a decade just this morning. "The company," he began, but his voice failed. He cleared his throat and tried again. "The company is bankrupt, Livia. We've lost everything." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. It was as if he was speaking in another language. Ashworth Construction, the company my grandfather founded 50 years ago, which had survived 2 recessions and seemed as solid as the buildings it constructed. Bankrupt? What do you mean bankrupt? The question came out as a whisper. The debts have accumulated. The last project didn't work out. Suppliers are demanding payment. The banks. He shook his head, defeated. "I have 10 days to pay everything off, or we lose not just the company but this house, the beach condo, everything." I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Our house, with its gardens where I learned to ride a bicycle, the library where I spent entire afternoons reading, the room where I kept all my childhood dreams. All of this could simply cease to exist? "How much?" I asked, trying to think of solutions. Maybe I could sell my car, my jewelry. $2.5 million. I swallowed hard. My car and jewelry wouldn't even come close to a fraction of that amount. "But Dad, you must know investors, other businessmen." "I've tried everything, sweetheart. No one wants to associate with a sinking ship." He got up and went to the window, looking at the garden where Mom used to cultivate her roses before leaving us 3 years ago. "There's only one possibility, but what? Tell me, Dad." He turned around, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time since Mom's funeral. "I received a very strange proposal yesterday. A man named Michael Sterling." My blood ran cold. Everyone knew that name. Michael Sterling, the youngest and most ruthless real estate mogul in the country. At 32, he had built an empire that made much more experienced people tremble just hearing his name. They said he could destroy careers with one phone call, and that his coldness in business was legendary. He found out about our situation and made a peculiar offer. Dad returned to his desk, nervously shuffling through some papers. "He would pay all our debts and even invest in rebuilding the company." "And what does he want in return?" I asked, already suspecting it wouldn't be anything simple. He wants you to marry him. For 1 year." It took me a few seconds to process what I had heard. "You're kidding, right?" "I wouldn't joke about something like this, Livia." His voice was serious, but there was a desperation that broke my heart. Apparently he needs a wife for some business deal he's closing. Something about impressing conservative investors or satisfying conditions of an inheritance. I didn't fully understand, but the proposal is clear. A fake marriage for 12 months. And in exchange he saves our family. Silence. The kind of silence that hangs heavy in the air and seems to last an eternity. I could hear the ticking of the antique clock on the wall, the sound of cars passing in the street, my own accelerated breathing. "Are you asking me to prostitute myself?" The words came out harsher than I intended. "No." He stood up abruptly. "It's nothing like that. It would just be a contract, a business agreement. You would maintain separate residences, separate lives. It would just be to appear in public together when necessary." I closed my eyes and tried to organize my thoughts. Selling myself in marriage to save the family business sounded like something out of a Victorian novel, not real life in the 21st century. And if I say no? Dad lowered his head. Then in 10 days we'll be on the street, and I'll probably be in prison for not being able to pay the company's debts. I felt a tightness in my chest. My father wasn't perfect, but he was an honest man who had always done everything for me. After Mom died, he became father and mother, always present, always supporting me. The idea of seeing him destroyed, of losing our house, of having to start over from scratch at 24. When does he want an answer? Tonight. Dad looked at his watch. He's coming here at 8 to hear your decision. I got up from the armchair, feeling my legs wobble. I need to think. I left the office heading to my room, but stopped in the middle of the stairs when I heard Dad whisper, "Forgive me, Livia. Forgive me for letting it get to this point." I climbed the steps 2 at a time and locked myself in my room. I sat on the bed where I had dreamed of my first kiss, my dream wedding, a life full of true love. And now I was being asked to turn marriage, something I had always considered sacred, into a commercial transaction. I looked around my room, the photos with my college friends, the literature books I'd been collecting since childhood, the graduation dress still hanging in the closet. All of this could disappear in 10 days. But more than that, Dad could end up in prison. I grabbed my laptop and typed Michael Sterling into Google. The first photo that appeared made me swallow hard. Perfectly aligned black hair, eyes of such an intense blue they seemed to pierce through the screen, a defined jawline, and an expression that suggested he could buy and sell people before breakfast. I read some articles about him. The business shark, the man who never loses, Manhattan's coldest bachelor. Not exactly the type of person a girl dreams of marrying, even if it's just for a year. But then I thought about Dad, the defeated expression on his face, the tears he tried to hide. I thought about our house, Grandpa's company, everything my family had built over generations. At 7:45 p.m., I went down to the office. Dad was sitting in the same position, shuffling through the same papers. "Have you decided?" he asked without looking up. "Decided." My voice sounded firmer than I expected. "But I have conditions." He finally looked at me, and I saw a mixture of hope and sadness in his eyes. "What kind of conditions?" "I want to know the exact details of the contract before signing anything. I want guarantees that my personal life will be respected, and I want you to promise that once this nightmare is over, you'll never hide problems with the company from me again." Dad nodded. "I promise." The doorbell rang at exactly 8 p.m. My heart started beating so hard I was sure everyone in the room could hear it. "He's punctual at least," I murmured, trying to ease the tension. Dad went to answer the door, and a few moments later, I heard firm footsteps approaching the office. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and prepared to meet the man who would become my fake husband. When Michael Sterling entered the office, it was as if all the air in the room had been sucked out. He was even more imposing in person than in the photos. Tall, elegant, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car, and with those blue eyes that seemed to calculate the value of every object in the room. "Mr. Ashworth," he said, greeting Dad with a firm handshake. Then he turned to me. "And you must be Livia." When he extended his hand, I hesitated for a second before accepting it. His fingers were warm and firm, and for some reason I couldn't explain, I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Mr. Sterling," I said, trying to keep my voice balanced, "please, call me Michael. After all, if everything works out, we'll be very close partners soon." The way he said very close partners made my stomach do a strange flip. There was something in his voice that was both authoritative and seductive. "I imagine your father has explained my proposal?" "He did." I straightened my spine, determined not to be intimidated by him. "But I'd like to hear directly from you what exactly your expectations are." Something like a smile briefly crossed his lips. Straight to the point. I like that. He sat in the armchair across from me, crossing his legs with casual elegance. I need a wife for strategic business reasons. Nothing more, nothing less. You would attend some social events with me, appear in some photos, and in exchange, your family would be free from all debts. And what about my personal life? You would have complete freedom, as long as you're discreet. We'll maintain separate residences, unless it's necessary to keep up appearances. He paused. And naturally, I expect the same discretion from you should I need company during this period. I felt blood rush to my face. So he thought he could have affairs while we were married? I see. And what happens at the end of the 12 months? Amicable divorce. You get a substantial amount as a settlement, and we go our separate ways. Dad was sitting in silence, watching our conversation if it were a tennis match. How much time do I have to decide? Michael looked at the Rolex on. You have until midnight tonight. He stood up from the armchair. I left the contract details with your. I suggest you read them carefully before making your decision. He headed toward the door but stopped and turned to me. Oh, and Livia? His blue eyes locked onto mine. Choose wisely. This may be your family's only chance at salvation. And with that, he left, leaving behind only the scent of expensive cologne and a tension in the air that seemed almost palpable. I stared at the empty doorway for a few seconds, still processing what had just happened. My entire life had changed in less than an hour, and now I had only 4 hours to decide if I was willing to trade my freedom for my family's salvation. Liv? Dad's voice brought me back to reality. I need to read the contract, I said, extending my hand. As I flipped through pages full of complicated legal terms, a single question echoed in my mind. What have I gotten myself into? And why, damn it, could I still feel the touch of Michael Sterling's hand on mine? I've been staring at the same paragraph for 20 minutes, but the words keep blurring together. Something about mutual obligations and public appearances. What I really want to know is buried somewhere in these 15 pages of legal jargon. Exactly what kind of hell am I signing myself into? My phone buzzes with a text from my best friend Zoe. Girl, you've been radio silent all day. Everything okay? If only she knew that okay went out the window the moment a certain blue-eyed devil walked into our lives. I can't tell her the truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. How do you explain that you're about to become a business transaction? The clock on my nightstand reads 11:30 p.m. 30 minutes left to decide if I'm brave enough, or desperate enough, to save my family by sacrificing my heart's deepest dreams. I flip to the section titled Marital Expectations, and my cheeks burn. The contract is surprisingly detailed about what we will and won't do. Separate bedrooms. No physical intimacy unless mutually agreed upon for the purpose of maintaining public image. Translation: fake kisses for the cameras. But then there's a clause that makes my stomach flip. Both parties agree to refrain from romantic entanglements with third parties that could compromise the integrity of this arrangement. Wait, so he can't have his company after all? The arrogant bastard lied to my face or was testing me. Either way, it's infuriating and oddly reassuring. A soft knock on my door interrupts my thoughts. Come in, Dad. He enters looking like he's aged another 5 years in the past few hours. Have you decided? I'm trying to understand what I'm deciding. I hold up the contract. Did you know there's a clause about a public debut within 72 hours of signing? What does that even mean? Dad sits on the edge of my bed, the same spot where he used to read me bedtime stories. I imagine it means you'd have to appear at some event together. Make it official. Official? The word tastes bitter. In 3 days, I could be walking down a red carpet pretending to be in love with a man who thinks marriage is just another business merger. Livy. Dad's voice cracks. You don't have to do this. We'll figure something else out. But we both know there is no something else. I've run the numbers a dozen times. Even if we sold everything, we'd barely make a dent in the debt. What was Mom like when you first met her? I asked suddenly. Dad's face softens. Stubborn as hell, smart as a whip, and completely unimpressed by my terrible pickup lines. He chuckles. She made me work for 3 months just to get her to agree to coffee. And you knew she was the one? The moment she told me my business plan was ambitious but fundamentally flawed, and then spent 2 hours explaining how to fix it. His eyes get that distant look they always do when he talks about Mom. Real love isn't supposed to be a transaction, sweetheart. But sometimes we do things for love that look like transactions from the outside, I say quietly. Dad studies my face. You've decided. I've decided that I can't watch you lose everything Grandpa built. I can't watch you go to prison for debts that aren't really your fault. I take a shaky breath. But I need to know I'm not walking into this completely blind. I grab my laptop and pull up Michael Sterling's Wikipedia page. The basics I already know, but I scroll down to the personal section. Sterling has never been publicly linked to any romantic relationships and maintains strict privacy about his personal life, I read aloud. Sources close to the businessman describe him as intensely focused on his work, with little time for social relationships. Sounds lonely, Dad observes. Sounds perfect for a fake marriage, I counter, but something about the description nags at me. Why would someone so successful, so obviously attractive, be so completely alone? My phone buzzes again. Another text from Zoe. Okay, now I'm worried. Call me. Instead, I find myself typing a message to a number I definitely shouldn't have. I have questions about the contract. I stare at the unsent message for a full minute before hitting send. It's 11:45 p.m. He probably won't even. My phone rings immediately. Ms. Ashworth. His voice is as smooth and controlled as it was in person, but there's something different about it over the phone, more intimate. I was wondering if you'd reach out. You were expecting me to call? I ask, annoyed that he predicted my behavior. I've learned that intelligent people always have questions, and despite what you might think, I prefer working with intelligent people. How generous of you. The sarcasm slips out before I can stop it. There's a pause, then something that might be amusement in his voice. Ask your questions, Livia. The way he says my name sends an unwelcome shiver down my spine. I shake it off and focus. The public debut clause. What exactly are you planning? The Merchant Foundation Gala on Thursday. Black tie, 500 of New York's most influential people, and enough photographers to ensure our engagement makes the society pages. Our engagement? My voice pitches higher. The contract says marriage. We can hardly announce a marriage out of nowhere. There has to be a progression. Engagement on Thursday. Quiet courthouse ceremony next week. The casual way he plans out our fake romance is both impressive and terrifying. And after the gala? We maintain the illusion. Dinner dates, weekend getaways, the occasional public display of affection. Nothing too dramatic. We're not teenagers. Public display of affection. I repeat slowly. Define that. Another pause. When he speaks, his voice is lower. Hand-holding. The occasional kiss. Whatever feels natural in the moment. Natural. Nothing about this feels natural, but my traitorous brain immediately wonders what kissing Michael Sterling would feel like. I have other questions. I start, but he cuts me off. It's 11:50, Livia. Do you plan to sign the contract or not? The weight of the moment crashes over me. This is it. In 10 minutes, my window closes, and with it, any chance of saving my family. If I sign this, I say carefully, I need your word that you'll honor every clause. No surprises, no additional expectations. You have my word. And I need to know why. The question tumbles out before I can stop it. Why me? Why not hire an actress, or find some socialite who'd jump at the chance to be Mrs. Michael Sterling? For the first time since I've known him, all 6 hours of it, he seems to hesitate. Because actresses lie for a living, and socialites can't be trusted with secrets. You're doing this for your family, which means you understand loyalty. And Another pause. And because when I looked into your eyes tonight, I saw someone who wouldn't break easily. The admission hangs between us like a confession. I need a pen, I whisper. Excellent. I'll send a car for you at 9 a.m. tomorrow to handle the paperwork and begin preparations for Thursday. Preparations? Wardrobe, jewelry, the engagement ring. We have 3 days to convince the world that we're madly in love. The line goes quiet, except for our breathing. Michael? I say softly. Yes? What if we can't pull this off? What if people see right through us? Then we'll both lose everything we're trying to protect. His voice is matter of fact, but I hear something underneath it. Vulnerability, maybe? But I don't think that's going to happen. Why not? Because, Livia Ashworth, you're about to discover that you're a much better actress than you think. The line goes dead, leaving me alone with my racing heart and a contract that's about to change everything. I sign my name with shaking hands at exactly 11:59 p.m. 1 minute later, my phone chimes with a text. Welcome to the performance of a lifetime. Sleep well, fiancé. I set the phone aside and stare at my signature on the page. In less than 12 hours, I'll be playing the role of a woman in love. The terrifying part isn't that I might not be convincing. The terrifying part is that I might be too convincing, even to myself. The Blacktown car that arrives at exactly 9 a.m. is so perfectly polished I can see my nervous reflection in its surface. I've changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on a simple navy dress that doesn't scream, I just sold my soul to save my family. Though honestly, I'm not sure there's an outfit for that particular occasion. Ms. Ashworth? The driver, a distinguished man in his 50s, opens the door with practiced efficiency. Mr. Sterling is waiting. Waiting where, I want to ask, but I slide into the leather interior and try to project confidence I absolutely don't feel. The car smells like expensive leather and subtle cologne. Michael's cologne, I realize with an unwelcome flutter in my stomach. 20 minutes later, we pull up to a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown. Sterling Industries occupies the top 15 floors, according to the directory, but the elevator takes me straight to the penthouse level without stopping. The doors open to reveal a reception area that looks like it was designed by someone who thought warm and welcoming were dirty words. Everything is steel, glass, and sharp angles. Even the receptionist, a stunning brunette who could have stepped off a magazine cover, seems to have been chosen to match the aesthetic. Ms. Ashworth, she says with a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Mr. Sterling is waiting in conference room A, down the hall, last door on your right. I find the room, take a deep breath, and knock. Come in. Michael is standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, hands clasped behind his back, looking out over Manhattan like he owns it. Which, given his real estate portfolio, he probably does own a significant chunk of it. He's wearing a charcoal gray suit that fits him like it was painted on, and when he turns to face me, I have to remind myself to breathe. Punctual. Good. He gestures to a chair at the massive conference table. We have a lot to cover. Spread across the table are photographs, fabric swatches, jewelry catalogs, and what appears to be a detailed schedule. It looks like a military operation. Is all this really necessary? I ask, settling into the chair across from him. Livia, in 3 days, we need to convince some of the most perceptive people in New York that we're deeply in love. These people know me. They know I don't do anything without careful consideration, especially when it comes to women. He picks up one of the photographs, a candid shot of us from last night that I definitely don't remember being taken. They'll be looking for any sign that this is fake. I stare at the photo. Somehow the photographer captured the exact moment Michael took my hand. The tension between us is visible even in black and white, and my expression, I look like a woman being offered something she wants, but is afraid to want. When was this taken? I had someone watching the house. We need documentation of our relationship developing naturally. He sees my expression and adds, Don't worry. The photographer was discreet, and the photos will be leaked to the right gossip columns over the next few days. You had me watched. My voice is sharp enough to cut glass. I had us watched. There's a difference. He sits across from me and I notice his tie is a shade of blue that exactly matches his eyes. Probably not a coincidence. This has to be believable, Livia. That means creating a history. He slides a folder toward me. Inside are more photos. Michael leaving a restaurant I've never been to. Me walking out of a coffee shop I don't recognize, and somehow, impossibly, shots of us together that I know never happened. How? Photoshop. But very good Photoshop. He leans back in his chair, studying my reaction. The story is that we've been seeing each other quietly for 2 months. You were hesitant to go public because of your father's business troubles. I was patient because I was falling for you. The casual way he creates this fictional romance is simultaneously impressive and terrifying. And people will believe this? People believe what they want to believe. And everyone wants to believe that someone like me can be brought to his knees by the right woman. Something in his tone makes me look up sharply. Can you? For just a moment, his carefully controlled expression slips, and I see something raw in his eyes. Then it's gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Let's focus on your transformation, he says, deflecting. I've arranged for you to spend the day with my stylist, Margot. She'll handle your wardrobe, hair, makeup, everything you'll need for Thursday. What's wrong with how I look now? The question comes out more defensive than I intended. Michael's gaze travels over me slowly, and I feel heat rise in my cheeks. Nothing is wrong with how you look, Livia. But right now, you look like a graduate student. Thursday night, you need to look like the woman who brought Manhattan's most eligible bachelor to his knees. Before I can respond, there's a knock on the door. A woman in her 50s enters, tall, elegant, with silver hair pulled into a perfect chignon, and the kind of presence that makes you automatically stand up straighter. Margot Beaumont, she says, extending a perfectly manicured hand. And you must be the woman who's captured our Michael's heart. I wouldn't say captured, I begin, but Michael interrupts. Completely captured, he says smoothly, standing to kiss Margot's cheek. I was just telling Livia how important Thursday night is. Margot circles me like a predator evaluating prey, and I resist the urge to fidget. Bone structure is excellent. Skin is lovely. Hair has potential. She tilts her head. Tell me, darling, what's your usual evening routine? Netflix and takeout? I offer weakly. Margot and Michael exchange a look. We have work to do, Margot announces. Michael, darling, we'll need the penthouse suite at Bergdorf's for the afternoon, and I'll want to see the jewelry you've selected. As if summoned by magic, an assistant appears with several black velvet boxes. Michael opens the largest one, revealing a ring that makes my breath catch. It's a classic emerald-cut diamond, easily 3 carats, surrounded by smaller stones that catch the light like captured stars. It's beautiful, I whisper, then catch myself. I mean, it's adequate for the purpose. Michael's lips quirk in what might be amusement. Just adequate? He takes the ring from the box and before I can react, captures my left hand. His fingers are warm and steady as he slides the ring onto my finger, and for a moment, the conference room fades away. It's just us, his thumb brushing over my knuckles as he adjusts the ring, his eyes focused on our joined hands with an intensity that makes my heart race. Perfect fit, he murmurs, and I'm not entirely sure he's talking about the ring. How did you know my size? I ask breathlessly. I'm very good at measuring things. His voice is low, and when he looks up at me, his eyes are darker than before. Margot clears her throat pointedly. Shall we, darling? We have much to accomplish before tomorrow evening. I start to slip the ring off, but Michael's hand covers mine. Keep it. You need to get used to wearing it. His touch lingers for a moment too long. Besides, it's insured for more than most people make in a year. I'd hate for something to happen to it. The weight of the ring feels foreign on my finger. But as the day progresses, and Margot works her magic, everything starts feeling foreign. The woman staring back at me from the mirror at Bergdorf's doesn't look like Livia Ashworth, struggling graduate student. She looks like someone who could absolutely convince the world she's in love with Michael Sterling. The question is, what happens when the convincing becomes real? By 6 p.m., I'm exhausted, transformed, and terrified. Margot has selected 3 different options for Thursday night, each more stunning than the last, and somehow made my hair look like I have twice as much of it. "Remember, darling," she says as she packs up her arsenal of brushes and potions, "confidence is the best accessory. You're not pretending to be worthy of Michael Sterling. You're reminding the world that he's worthy of you." As I sit in the back of the town car heading home, Michael's ring catching the city lights, I practice what Margot taught me. How to look at him like he's the only man in the room. How to touch his arm just long enough to suggest intimacy. How to smile like I'm harboring a delicious secret. My phone buzzes with a text. "How did today go?" I stare at Michael's message for a long moment before typing back, "I think you're going to be surprised Thursday night." His response comes immediately. "I'm looking forward to it. Sleep well, fiancé. Tomorrow we rehearse." Rehearse. As if love could be choreographed. But as I touch the ring on my finger, I can't shake the feeling that some performances become too real to be called acting. "You're holding my hand like it's a dead fish." Michael's blunt assessment makes me want to drop his hand entirely, but we're standing in the middle of Central Park with what I now know is his ever-present photographer hidden somewhere in the trees. Our romantic rehearsal walk is apparently not going as planned. "Sorry," I mutter, trying to relax my grip. I'm not used to this. This being holding hands with a man, or this being photographed while holding hands with a man you barely know? Both, I admit, then immediately regret my honesty when I see the smirk tugging at his lips. We've been walking for 20 minutes, and it's been the most awkward 20 minutes of my life. Every gesture feels forced, every smile feels painted on, and I'm hyper-aware of the expensive ring on my finger catching the afternoon sunlight. "Let's try something different," Michael says, stopping beneath a large oak tree. "Tell me something real about yourself, something not in your file." "You have a file on me?" Background check, standard procedure. He sees my expression and adds, "Nothing invasive, just the basics. College transcripts, employment history, that speeding ticket from last year." "I was late for my dad's birthday dinner," I say defensively. "And you drove 15 miles over the speed limit through a school zone to get there." Something that might be admiration flickers in his eyes. "Family loyalty. I can work with that." There's an odd intimacy to standing so close to him, close enough to see the small scar near his left temple. Close enough to notice that his cologne is subtly different today. Warmer, less aggressive. "Your turn," I say. "Tell me something real about Michael Sterling that isn't in Forbes magazine." He's quiet for so long I think he's going to refuse. Then, "I haven't had a home-cooked meal in 3 years." The admission surprises me. "What do you mean?" "I mean I eat every meal in restaurants, at business dinners, or from whatever my assistant orders to the office. I can't remember the last time I sat at a kitchen table." There's something achingly lonely about that confession, and I find myself studying his face more closely. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if we're going to convince people we're in love, you need to understand who I really am, not the media version." He steps closer, and I can feel the warmth radiating from his body. "And I need to understand you." "What do you want to know?" "Why literature?" He gestures toward the book peeking out of my purse. A worn copy of Jane Austen I always carry. "Your file says you're getting your master's in English literature." "Why?" I touch the book self-consciously. "Because stories matter. Because the way we tell our stories shapes how we see ourselves, how we see love, how we see what's possible." I pause. I know that probably sounds ridiculous to someone who deals in concrete and steel. "It doesn't sound ridiculous." His voice is softer now. "What's your favorite story?" "Pride and Prejudice." Elizabeth Bennet refuses to settle for anything less than true love. even when everyone tells her she's being impractical. I look up at him. She nearly loses everything for her principles, but in the end, she gets both love and security. And you think that's realistic? Getting everything you want? I think it's possible if you're brave enough to demand it. Michael stares at me for a long moment, and I have the strangest feeling I've just passed some kind of test. Better, he says finally. Much better. What's better? The way you're looking at me now, like you're seeing an actual person instead of a business proposition. He reaches up and adjusts a strand of hair that's fallen across my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. That's the look we need tomorrow night. My breath catches at his touch, and for a moment, I forget this is supposed to be acting. There's something in his eyes that looks almost vulnerable. Michael, I start, but he steps back, the moment broken. We should practice the story, he says, his voice returning to its businesslike tone. People will ask how we met, how long we've been together when I proposed. Right. The performance. I clear my throat and try to focus. How did we meet in this fictional romance of ours? At a charity auction. You were bidding on a first edition Austen, Pride and Prejudice, naturally, and I outbid you. That's terrible. I would have hated you. You did hate me. Until I had the book delivered to your apartment the next day with a note asking you to dinner. He's walking again, and I fall into step beside him. You made me wait 2 weeks before you said yes. Good for fictional me. What changed my mind? I kept sending you books, one every day. All first editions, all with handwritten notes. He glances at me sideways. Persistence pays off. Despite myself, I'm charmed by this imaginary courtship. And when did you propose? Last weekend. Private dinner at Le Bernardin. I had the ring hidden in the dessert, I finish, rolling my eyes. How original. You have a better idea. I think for a moment. You proposed here, in the park, during our morning run. I don't run in the park. Fictional you does. You said you wanted to share your favorite place in the city with me, and when we stopped to watch the sunrise, you got down on one knee. I warmed to the story. It was spontaneous and romantic, and completely unlike the controlled businessman everyone thinks you are. Michael has stopped walking and is staring at me. That's actually much better than my version. I told you stories matter. So, fictional me runs in the park and cooks dinner and gets down on one knee in the dirt. Fictional you is in love. Love makes people do crazy things. And what about fictional you? What does love make her do? The question hangs between us, loaded with subtext I'm not sure I'm ready to examine. Fictional me says yes to marrying a man she barely knows, I say quietly. Because sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. We've somehow stopped walking again, and we're standing close enough that I have to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. The late afternoon sun is casting golden light through the trees, and for just a moment, it feels like we're the only two people in the world. Livia, he says, and my name sounds different in his voice, less formal, more intimate. Yes? Tomorrow night, when we walk into that gala together, everyone is going to be watching us, looking for cracks in the facade. I know. So when I put my hand on your back, when I whisper something in your ear, when I look at you like you're the only woman in the room. He pauses. You can't flinch. You can't pull away. You have to lean into it. I understand. Do you? He steps closer, close enough that I can see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes. Because right now you look like you're about to bolt. He's right. Every instinct is telling me to run, to put distance between us before this fake intimacy starts feeling too real. But instead, I force myself to stay still, to meet his gaze, to breathe. Better? I ask. Better. But he doesn't step away. Instead, he reaches out and takes my hand. Properly this time, his fingers intertwining with mine. One more thing. What? This. And before I can react, He's cupping my face with his free hand and leaning down to kiss me. It's supposed to be practice. A rehearsal for tomorrow night's performance. But the moment his lips touch mine, everything else disappears. The park, the hidden photographer, the fact that this is all supposed to be fake. None of it matters. What matters is the way he tastes like coffee and mint, the way his thumb traces along my jaw, the way my entire body seems to come alive under his touch. What matters is that I'm kissing him back, my free hand fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. That was... I start, but can't finish the sentence. Practice, he says firmly, but his voice is rough around the edges. Just practice. Right. Practice. But as we walk back toward the street in charged silence, I can't shake the feeling that some kinds of practice are more dangerous than the real thing. Tomorrow night, we'll have to convince a room full of people that we're madly in love. After that kiss, I'm starting to worry that won't be acting at all. I've changed dresses 4 times, and I'm starting to think the black gown Margot selected might actually be made of liquid confidence. It hugs every curve I have and creates some I didn't know existed. But more importantly, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who could absolutely be on Michael Sterling's arm. The problem is, I also see a woman who's terrified she might actually want to be there. My hands are shaking as I fasten the diamond tennis bracelet that appeared at my door this morning, along with a note. To complete the illusion. M. The illusion? Right. That's all this is. So why does my pulse spike every time I think about seeing him tonight? The intercom buzzes at exactly 7 p.m. Ms. Ashworth, your car is here. I take one last look in the mirror, grab the matching clutch that costs more than my monthly rent, and head downstairs. Dad is waiting in the foyer, and when he sees me, his eyes fill with tears. Oh, sweetheart, you look just like your mother did the night I proposed. The comparison hits harder than expected. Mom was radiant that night in the photos, glowing with real love, real joy. Tonight, I'm glowing with expensive makeup and borrowed jewelry, about to fake the very thing she had genuinely. Wish me luck, I say, kissing his cheek. You don't need luck. You just need to remember who you are. The town car is waiting outside, but instead of the usual driver, Michael himself is leaning against the passenger door. And sweet Jesus, if I thought he looked good in business suits, nothing prepared me for Michael Sterling in a tuxedo. The black jacket fits him like it was designed by angels with very specific fantasies, and his bow tie is perfectly straight in a way that suggests he tied it himself. His hair is slightly less perfect than usual, as if he'd run his hands through it, and when he sees me descending the front steps, he goes completely still. Livia. My name comes out like a prayer. Too much? I ask, suddenly self-conscious under his intense stare. Not nearly enough, he says, and there's something in his voice that makes my skin tingle. He opens the car door for me, and as I slide past him, his hand briefly touches the small of my back. Even through the fabric, his touch burns. The ride to the plaza is quiet, but it's the kind of quiet that vibrates with unspoken tension. Michael sits just close enough that I can smell his cologne, just far enough away that I have to resist the urge to close the distance. Nervous? He asks as we turn onto Fifth Avenue. Terrified, I admit. What if I say the wrong thing? What if someone asks a question we haven't prepared for? Then we improvise. He reaches over and takes my hand, his thumb tracing over my knuckles. Just remember, you're not playing a character tonight. You're just the best version of yourself. The car pulls up to the plaza, where a red carpet stretches from the curb to the entrance. Photographers line both sides, their flashes already going off as other couples make their entrances. My stomach drops. I didn't realize there would be so many cameras. The Merchant Foundation Gala is the social event of the season. Everyone who's anyone will be here. Michael adjusts his cufflinks, a gesture I'm beginning to recognize as a nervous habit. Ready? Before I can answer, he's out of the car and walking around to my side. The moment he opens my door, the volume of camera flashes triples. I take his offered hand and let him help me out, trying to channel every movie star I've ever admired. "Smile," he murmurs, his hand settling on my waist as we pose for the photographers. "Look at me like you're thinking about what we did last night." Heat floods my cheeks, and whatever expression crosses my face makes the cameras go wild. "Perfect," he says under his breath, then louder for the reporters. "Gentlemen, ladies, I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Livia Ashworth." The announcement sends a ripple of excitement through the crowd. Questions fly at us from every direction. "How long have you been engaged? When's the wedding? Miss Ashworth, how did you capture Manhattan's most eligible bachelor?" Michael fields the questions with practiced ease while I stand beside him, trying to look like a woman in love, rather than a woman having an out-of-body experience. His hand never leaves my waist, steady and warm, and somehow comforting despite the chaos around us. "We'll have plenty of time to chat inside," he finally says, guiding me toward the entrance. "Right now, I just want to dance with my fiancée." As we walk up the red carpet, he leans down to whisper in my ear. "You're doing beautifully." His breath against my ear sends shivers down my spine. And when I turn to look at him, we're close enough that our lips are almost touching. For a moment, surrounded by flashing cameras and shouting reporters, it feels like we're in our own private bubble. Then someone calls his name, and the moment breaks. The plaza's ballroom has been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light over hundreds of guests in designer gowns and perfect tuxedos. A string quartet plays in one corner, while waiters circulate with champagne and canapes that probably cost more than most people's dinners. "Michael Sterling, you dark horse." We're immediately surrounded by a group of people who all seem to know Michael intimately. Business associates, I gather, based on their conversation about market trends and acquisition deals. They're polite to me, but clearly sizing me up, trying to figure out what I could possibly have that caught Manhattan's most notorious bachelor. "So, Livia," says a woman with perfectly coiffed silver hair and sharp eyes, "what do you do?" "I'm finishing my master's in English literature at Columbia," I reply, and something flickers across her face. Disappointment, surprise. "How?" "Academic," she says with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "And you met Michael at a charity auction," Michael interjects smoothly, his arm tightening around my waist. "She was bidding on a first edition Austen." "How romantic," the woman says, but her tone suggests she finds it anything but. As the evening progresses, I begin to understand the social dynamics at play. These people have known Michael for years, have watched him ruthlessly prioritize business over everything else. The idea that he would fall in love, really fall in love, clearly strikes them as unlikely, which means our performance has to be flawless. "Dance with me," Michael says during a brief lull in introductions. He leads me onto the dance floor as the quartet begins a waltz. His hand settles at my waist, mine on his shoulder, and suddenly we're moving together like we've done this 1,000 times before. "You're a good dancer," I say, surprised. "Mandatory lessons as a child," my mother insisted. His voice is carefully neutral, but I catch something underneath it. "She believed in proper preparation for all social situations." Past tense. "She died when I was 16. The admission is matter of fact, but his hand tightens slightly on my waist. "Car accident. I'm sorry. I know how empty those words are, but I mean them. It was a long time ago." He spins me gently, then pulls me back into his arms. "What about you? Your mother? 3 years ago? Cancer." The word still tastes bitter in my mouth. She would have loved this. The dress, the dancing, the fairy tale of it all. Would she have approved of me? The question catches me off guard. There's something almost vulnerable in the way he asks it, as if the answer actually matters to him. "She would have said you're too handsome for my own good," I reply honestly, "and then she would have interrogated you about your intentions." "And what would I have told her?" "We're barely moving now. just swaying together in the middle of the dance floor. The ballroom full of people has faded into background noise, and it's just us, his blue eyes focused entirely on my face. "You would have told her," I start, then realize I don't know how to finish that sentence. What would he have told her? What are his intentions, real or otherwise? "I would have told her," he says quietly, "that her daughter is the most remarkable woman I've ever met." My breath catches. There's something in his voice, in his eyes, that doesn't sound like acting. But before I can analyze it further, someone taps Michael on the shoulder. "Mind if I cut in?" The interruption comes from a man about Michael's age with sandy hair and a smile that seems calculated to charm. Michael's entire body tenses, and his expression shifts to something colder. "Richard," he says with polite distaste, "I didn't realize you were in town. Just flew in from London. Couldn't miss the chance to meet the woman who finally tamed the great Michael Sterling." Richard's eyes rake over me appreciatively. Though I have to say, I'm surprised. She's not your usual type. And what would you know about my type? Michael's voice has an edge that makes me nervous. "Oh, come on. We both know you prefer your arrangements to be more transactional." Richard's smile is sharp. This whole love story seems a bit convenient, don't you think? The accusation hangs in the air like a poison cloud. I can feel people nearby starting to pay attention to our conversation, can sense the shift in atmosphere. "Careful, Richard," Michael says quietly, but there's steel in his voice. "I'm just saying, if I were going to acquire a wife for business purposes, I'd probably choose someone exactly like Miss Ashworth here. Smart enough to play the part, pretty enough to be believable, and desperate enough to—" He doesn't get to finish the sentence because Michael's fist connects with his jaw in a movement so fast I barely see it coming. The ballroom erupts into chaos. The silence that follows the impact of Michael's fist against Richard's jaw lasts exactly 3 seconds. Then the ballroom explodes into whispers, gasps, and the rapid clicking of smartphone cameras. Richard stumbles backward, blood trickling from his lip, his hand pressed to his face in shock. I'm frozen, watching this perfectly orchestrated evening implode in real time. Michael stands over Richard like an avenging angel in Armani, his chest rising and falling rapidly, his usually perfect hair disheveled. There's something wild in his eyes that I've never seen before, something raw and protective and absolutely terrifying. "Michael," I whisper, touching his arm. The muscles beneath his jacket are coiled tight, and for a moment, I think he might hit Richard again. "You son of a bitch." Richard spits, dabbing at his bloody lip with a cocktail napkin. "You'll regret this." "The only thing I regret," Michael says, his voice deadly quiet, "is not doing that years ago." Security guards are pushing through the crowd now, and I can see several board members of the Merchant Foundation making their way toward us. This is about to become a very public spectacle, and our carefully crafted love story is about to become a scandal. "We need to leave," I say urgently. "Now." But Michael doesn't move. He's staring at Richard with an intensity that makes my skin crawl, and I realize there's history here. Bad history that goes far deeper than tonight's insult. "Michael," I say more firmly, stepping between him and Richard, "look at me." His eyes snap to mine, and for a moment he looks lost, confused, like he's just waking up from a dream. "We need to go," I repeat gently, "before this gets worse." Something in my voice seems to reach him. He blinks, glances around at the crowd of staring faces, and seems to realize what he's done. Without another word, he takes my hand and starts pushing through the crowd toward the exit. "Mr. Sterling! Mr. Sterling!" Reporters are shouting questions as we make our way through the ballroom. "Can you comment on the altercation? Was this about your engagement?" Michael doesn't answer, just keeps moving, his hand gripping mine so tightly it almost hurts. We make it to the coat check, grab my wrap, and practically run toward the exit. The valet, bless him, has our car waiting at the curb as if he sensed we might need a quick getaway. The moment we're inside the car with the doors closed, The silence becomes suffocating. "Drive," Michael tells the driver, then raises the partition between us and the front seat. I watch the plaza disappear behind us, my mind reeling. In the space of 5 minutes, our perfect performance has become a disaster. By tomorrow morning, the story won't be about Michael Sterling's surprise engagement. It'll be about Michael Sterling losing control and punching someone at a charity gala. "Are you going to tell me what that was about?" I ask finally. Michael is staring out the window, his jaw clenched. "Richard Blackthorne is a competitor, has been for years. And nothing. He was out of line. I study his profile in the passing streetlights. There's more to this story, but the rigid set of his shoulders tells me he's not ready to share it. You just punched someone at the most important social event of the year," I say quietly. "Our engagement announcement just became a sideshow to your temper tantrum." That gets his attention. He turns to face me, and there's fire in his eyes. "Temper tantrum? He called you desperate, Livia. He implied that you were some kind of transaction, which is exactly what I am." The words explode out of me before I can stop them. "That's exactly what this is, Michael. A transaction, a business deal. You're paying my father's debts, and I'm playing the role of your devoted fiancé." Richard wasn't wrong. He was just rude about it. Michael stares at me like I've slapped him. Something shifts in his expression, something cold and distant settling back into place. "You're right," he says finally. "Of course you're right." I forgot myself for a moment. But something about the way he says it makes my chest ache. Because for a moment back there, when he was defending me with fire in his eyes and violence in his fists, it didn't feel like a transaction. It felt like something real. "Michael, we'll handle the fallout tomorrow," he says, cutting me off. His voice is back to its professional tone, carefully controlled. "My PR team will spin it as a romantic gesture. Fiancé defending his bride-to-be's honor. Might actually work in our favor." The partition slides down. "Where to, Mr. Sterling?" the driver asks. "Ms. Ashworth's address," Michael replies without consulting me. I want to argue, want to demand that we talk about what just happened, but the distance in his voice stops me. We ride the rest of the way in silence, and when we pull up in front of my house, Michael doesn't get out to walk me to the door. "I'll call you tomorrow," he says as I gather my things. "We'll need to coordinate our response to the media coverage." "Michael," I turn back to him, one foot already on the sidewalk. "What Richard said about your usual type, about preferring arrangements to be transactional. What did he mean?" For a moment his mask slips again, and I see something that looks almost like shame in his eyes. "Good night, Livia." The car pulls away before I can respond, leaving me standing on the sidewalk in my borrowed designer gown, feeling like Cinderella after midnight. Dad is waiting up when I get inside, taking one look at my face and immediately pulling me into his arms. "What happened, sweetheart?" I tell him everything, the gala, the dancing, Richard's accusations, Michael's punch, the terrible ride home. Dad listens without interrupting, his hand stroking my hair like he used to when I was little and had nightmares. "Do you think he was defending you or defending the deal?" Dad asks when I'm finished. "I don't know," I whisper. "That's the problem. I don't know what's real anymore." I spend the next hour getting out of the dress and jewelry, carefully hanging everything up like the borrowed items they are. But when I try to remove the engagement ring, my hands shake. Something about taking it off feels wrong, like I'm giving up something precious. So I leave it on. I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of the evening, when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Interesting evening. Michael's always been protective of his investments. Sleep well, Miss Ashworth. R. Richard. Somehow he got my number, and somehow he knows exactly how to twist the knife. Michael was protecting his investment, the deal, not me. But then I remember the look in his eyes when he turned away from Richard, the way he said my name like a prayer, the way he danced with me like I was precious. Another text comes in, this one from Michael. Are you all right? I stare at the message for a long time before typing back. Define all right. His response comes immediately. I'm sorry about tonight. About losing control. It won't happen again. What if I don't want it to not happen again? I type, then delete it before sending. Instead, I write, Richard texted me. He has my number somehow. My phone rings within seconds. What did he say? Michael's voice is sharp, alert. Something about you being protective of your investments. A long pause. Then, Livia, you need to understand something about Richard Blackthorne. He's not just a competitor. He's dangerous. He destroyed my last business partnership, cost me millions, and he did it just because he could. What does that have to do with me? It means he'll use you to get to me if he can. It means you need to be careful. I'm not your real fiancé, Michael. I'm not actually in danger from your enemies. Another pause, longer this time. Aren't you? He asks quietly. The question hangs between us, loaded with implications I'm not sure I'm ready to face. What are you saying? I'm saying that tonight when he insulted you, I forgot this was supposed to be an act. I'm saying that somewhere between the contract and tonight, something changed. His voice is rough, unguarded. I'm saying that I don't know what's real anymore either. My heart stops, then starts again, faster. Michael. I should go. We both need sleep. But he doesn't hang up. Livia? Yeah? For what it's worth, what I said about you being the most remarkable woman I've ever met, that wasn't part of the performance. The line goes dead, leaving me staring at the phone in the darkness. Outside my window, New York glitters like a jewelry box, full of possibilities and promises. Tomorrow, our faces will be on the front page of every gossip rag in the city. Tomorrow, we'll have to face the consequences of tonight's explosion. But right now, lying in the dark with Michael's ring on my finger and his words echoing in my head, I can't bring myself to care about tomorrow. Because somewhere between signing that contract and tonight, I stopped acting too. And that realization terrifies me more than any of Richard's threats ever could. I wake up to my phone buzzing like an angry bee. The clock reads 6:47 a.m., and I have 37 missed calls, 63 text messages, and more email notifications than my screen can display. My heart sinks before I even look at the first headline. Sterling's surprising romance turns violent. Billionaire's bride, the woman worth fighting for. Mystery fiancé sparks, charity gala brawl. Each headline is accompanied by photos. Michael and me dancing, Michael's fist connecting with Richard's jaw, me looking shocked in my borrowed diamonds. We look like a soap opera come to life, but it's the gossip blog article that makes my stomach drop. Exclusive. Inside sources reveal Sterling's romance may be business deal gone bad. They don't have proof, but they're asking the right questions. Questions about the timing of our engagement coinciding with my father's financial troubles. Questions about Michael's previous lack of romantic relationships. Questions about whether Manhattan's coldest bachelor could really fall in love so suddenly. My phone rings, and Michael's name appears on the screen. Have you seen... I start. All of it. We need to talk. In person. His voice is clipped, professional. I'm sending a car. Michael, maybe we should... 30 minutes, Livia, and pack a bag. The line goes dead before I can ask what he means. The car that arrives isn't the usual town car. It's a black SUV with tinted windows that looks more like a Secret Service vehicle. The driver introduces himself as Marcus, and something about his bearing suggests he's more bodyguard than chauffeur. Is Michael expecting trouble? I ask as we pull away from my house. Marcus glances at me in the rearview mirror. Mr. Sterling believes in being prepared, ma'am. We don't go to his office building. Instead, we drive through the Lincoln Tunnel and head toward New Jersey. After 40 minutes, we turn into a gated driveway that leads to a sprawling glass and stone house overlooking the Hudson River. Welcome to Mr. Sterling's private residence, Marcus says as he opens my door. I stare up at the house. It's stunning, modern, and completely isolated. No neighbors, no paparazzi, no prying eyes. Just Michael and me, and whatever truth we're finally going to face. He's waiting at the front door, wearing jeans and a navy sweater that makes his eyes look impossibly blue. It's the most casual I've ever seen him, and somehow it makes him even more attractive. His hair is disheveled like he's been running his hands through it, and there are shadows under his eyes that suggest he didn't sleep much either. "Thank you for coming," he says, stepping aside to let me enter. The interior is as breathtaking as the exterior. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, sleek furniture that probably costs more than most people's houses. But despite its beauty, something about the house feels cold, unlived in, like a beautiful museum where no one actually exists. "Coffee?" he offers, leading me toward what I assume is the kitchen. "Michael, we need to talk about—" "I know." He stops walking and turns to face me. "But first, I need to tell you something. About Richard. About why I really punched him." He gestures toward a living room area with white leather furniture and a fireplace that's never been used. We sit on opposite ends of the same couch, and the distance between us feels like an ocean. "5 years ago I was engaged," he begins, his voice carefully controlled. "Her name was Victoria Pemberton. Old money, society connections, everything my mother would have wanted for me. I feel something twist in my chest at the mention of another woman, which is ridiculous given our situation. What happened? Richard happened." Michael's hands clench into fists in his lap. "He seduced her, deliberately, systematically, for months. Not because he wanted her, but because he wanted to destroy me. She left me 3 days before our wedding for him. Michael, I'm so sorry. The worst part wasn't losing her. The worst part was realizing that she was right to leave." He looks out the window at the river. "We weren't in love. It was exactly what everyone expected, a strategic alliance between two suitable families. Richard just exposed what I was too proud to admit. I'm starting to understand the cold perfection of his world, the careful distance he maintains from everyone and everything. Is that why you've never been in a relationship since? Why you needed a contract wife instead of just dating someone?" He's quiet for so long I think he won't answer. Then, after Victoria, I decided that business arrangements were cleaner, safer. No one gets hurt when expectations are clear from the beginning. Until now. Until now. He turns to look at me, and there's something raw in his expression. "Last night, when Richard called you desperate, when he implied you were just another transaction, I lost control because the idea of anyone thinking of you that way made me want to commit murder." My breath catches. "Michael, I know what the contract says, Livia. I know what we agreed to. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being a business arrangement to me." He shifts closer on the couch. "You became something I couldn't afford to lose." The confession hangs between us, beautiful and terrifying. I want to reach for him, want to close the distance between us. But I need to understand something first. "The gossip blogs are asking questions," I say carefully. "About the timing of our engagement, about whether this is real. They don't have proof yet, but they're getting close," he nods. "I had a call from my lawyers this morning. If this blows up, if it comes out that our marriage is a sham, it won't just destroy the business deal I need this for. It'll destroy everything." "What business deal?" Michael stands and walks to the window, his back to me. "My father left the company to me when he died, but there was a condition in his will. A trust that controls 40% of Sterling Industries, enough to challenge my leadership if they wanted to." "Who controls the trust?" "The board. Conservative old men who believe family values and stability are essential for business leadership." He turns back to me. "I need to be married, Livia. Respectably, traditionally married. It's the only way to secure full control of the company my family built." The pieces click into place. "And if they find out our marriage is fake, they'll remove me as CEO and hand control to whoever they deem more suitable. Probably Richard, who's been circling like a vulture for months. I stare at him, understanding flooding through me. This was never about impressing investors or inheritance conditions. This was about saving your company. Yes. And you didn't tell me because you knew I'd realize how much you stand to lose if this fails. Yes. The honesty is brutal and beautiful and completely terrifying. Because now I understand that we're both trapped in this contract. Him by his father's will, me by my family's debts. But somewhere in the trap, we found something real. What happens now? I ask. Now we make a choice. He sits back down, close enough that I can see the gold flecks in his eyes. We can end this before it gets worse. I'll pay your father's debts as promised. You'll get your settlement, and we'll both walk away before anyone gets hurt worse than they already have. Or we take the biggest risk of our lives. His hand hovers near mine on the couch, not quite touching. We stop pretending this is just business and see what happens when we let it be real. My heart is hammering so hard I'm sure he can hear it. And if it doesn't work? If we're not compatible outside of a contract? Then we'll have had something beautiful for however long it lasts. His fingers finally brush mine. But I have to warn you, I'm not easy to love, Livia. I'm controlling. I work too much. And I've spent so many years protecting myself that I'm not sure I remember how to let someone in. And I'm stubborn. I overthink everything, and I have trust issues thanks to this whole fake engagement situation. I turn my hand palm up, letting our fingers intertwine. But you make me want to try. Even knowing that Richard will do everything he can to destroy us? That the media will pick apart every moment of our relationship? That your life will never be private again? Even knowing all of that. Michael stares at our joined hands for a long moment. Then he looks up at me with an expression that's equal parts hope and terror. There's one more thing you should know before you decide. What? I'm falling in love with you, Livia Ashworth. Have been since the moment you walked into that conference room and refused to be intimidated by me. His thumb traces across my knuckles. And if you choose to make this real, if you choose me, I'll spend every day proving that you made the right decision. The words hit me like lightning, illuminating everything I've been trying not to acknowledge. The way my heart races when he walks into a room. The way his rare smiles feel like gifts. The way I felt when he defended me last night, protected, cherished, chosen. I'm falling in love with you too, I whisper, and it terrifies me. Good, he says, leaning closer until our foreheads almost touch. The best things in life should be a little terrifying. And then he's kissing me, soft and sweet, and nothing like the desperate kiss in Central Park. This kiss tastes like honesty and hope and the promise of something real. When we break apart, I'm breathless and dizzy and completely certain of only one thing. So, I say, my voice shaky, I guess we're really doing this. I guess we are. Michael smiles, and it's the first completely unguarded expression I've ever seen on his face. Think you're ready to fall in love for real, Miss Ashworth? With you? I pretend to consider it. I think I can manage that, Mr. Sterling. Outside, storm clouds are gathering over the Hudson, but inside this glass house, with Michael's arms around me and the weight of pretense finally lifted, I've never felt safer. The contract brought us together, but what happens next will be entirely our choice. And for the first time in weeks, I'm not afraid of the choice we're making. 3 weeks later, I'm standing in the bridal suite at the plaza, staring at myself in a mirror and trying to believe this is really happening. The wedding dress Michael chose is nothing like the borrowed gown from the gala. It's simple, elegant, with long sleeves and a flowing skirt that makes me feel like a princess from a fairy tale. But the best part is that it's mine. Not borrowed, not part of a performance. Mine. You look radiant, sweetheart, Dad says from behind me, and when I turn, I see tears in his eyes. Your mother would be so proud. The past 3 weeks have been a whirlwind of planning, media management, and stolen moments with Michael that felt more precious because they were real. We've been careful, deliberate, taking our time to build something genuine while the world watches our every move. But today, everything changes. Today, we stop being engaged and become married. Today, our contract becomes a real commitment. "Are you ready?" Dad asks, offering his arm. I take one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back at me isn't the desperate graduate student who signed a contract to save her family. She's someone stronger, braver, someone who chose love even when it was terrifying. "Ready," I say, and I mean it. The ceremony is small, just family, a few close friends, and the handful of board members whose approval Michael needs. We decided against a big society wedding, choosing instead something intimate and meaningful. The plaza's oak room has been transformed with white roses and soft lighting, creating an atmosphere that feels more like a garden than a hotel ballroom. But when the doors open and I see Michael waiting at the altar, everything else fades away. He's wearing a classic black tuxedo with a white rose boutonniere, and when his eyes meet mine, the smile that spreads across his face is so full of joy and love that I nearly stumble. The walk down the aisle seems to take forever, and no time at all. Dad kisses my cheek before placing my hand in Michael's, and when our fingers intertwine, I feel the rightness of it down to my bones. "Hi," Michael whispers, his thumb tracing over my knuckles. "Hi yourself," I whisper back, and we're both grinning like idiots. The ceremony is traditional, but personal. We've written our own vows, and when Michael begins to speak, his voice is steady, but his eyes are bright with unshed tears. "Livia," he begins, "6 months ago I thought I knew what I wanted from life. Control, success, the kind of predictable stability that comes from keeping everyone at arm's length. Then you walked into my conference room and challenged everything I thought I knew about myself." He pauses, swallowing hard. "You taught me that the best things in life can't be controlled or predicted or negotiated in a contract. You taught me that love isn't a transaction. It's a choice you make every day, sometimes a dozen times a day. And I choose you, Livia. Today, tomorrow, and every day after that. I choose us." By the time he finishes, I'm crying, and so is half the room. When it's my turn, I have to take a moment to compose myself. "Michael," I say, my voice shaking slightly. "When I signed that contract, I thought I was saving my family. I had no idea I was actually saving myself. You've shown me what it means to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved, not for what I can provide or what role I can play, but for who I am." I squeeze his hands, drawing strength from his touch. "They say that love is a leap of faith, but with you, it doesn't feel like falling. It feels like flying. So yes, I choose you. I choose us. I choose this beautiful, terrifying, wonderful life we're building together." When the minister pronounces us husband and wife, Michael's kiss is soft and sweet and full of promise. The small crowd erupts in applause, but all I can hear is the beating of my own heart and Michael's whispered, "I love you," against my lips. The reception is everything I never knew I wanted. Elegant, but warm, formal, but joyful. Michael never lets go of my hand except when we're dancing, and even then, he holds me close like he's afraid I might disappear. "Any regrets?" he asks as we sway to our first dance as husband and wife. "Only one," I say, and his expression immediately turns concerned. I regret that it took a fake engagement for us to find each other. Relief floods his face, followed by that brilliant smile I've come to love so much. Well, when you put it that way, I'm grateful for every moment of pretending. It led us here. To the real thing. To the real thing, he agrees, spinning me gently. But our perfect bubble is burst when I catch sight of a familiar figure near the edge of the dance floor. Richard Blackthorne, somehow having gotten past security, is watching us with a smile that makes my skin crawl. "Michael," I say quietly, nodding toward where Richard stands. Michael's entire body tenses, but he doesn't stop dancing. I see him. "What's he doing here?" probably planning to make some kind of scene. It's what he does. Michael's voice is calm, but I can feel the anger radiating from him. Don't let him ruin this day, Livia. Whatever he's planning, we'll handle it. As if summoned by our attention, Richard begins walking toward us. The music is still playing, but I can feel the mood in the room shift as people notice his approach. Michael, Livia, Richard says when he reaches us, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. Congratulations on your union. You weren't invited, Richard, Michael says evenly, but there's steel in his voice. Oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world. After all, it's not often you get to witness such a perfect business merger disguised as a love story. A collective gasp goes up from the guests. Several people pull out their phones, and I realize that whatever Richard says next will be recorded, analyzed, and splashed across every gossip site in the city. Careful, Michael warns, but Richard just smiles. Did you know, Richard continues loudly, that the lovely bride's father was facing bankruptcy when this engagement was announced? $2.5 million in debt, to be exact. Amazing how love can solve financial problems so efficiently. My heart sinks as I watch the faces around us. Confusion, suspicion, disappointment. The board members who came to witness Michael's respectable marriage are now hearing it questioned publicly. Of course, Richard goes on, I have copies of the original contract they signed, very detailed about the terms of their arrangement. Would anyone like to see them? The room erupts into murmurs and shocked gasps. This is it, the moment our entire world comes crashing down. Richard has won. But then Michael does something I never expected. He laughs. Not a bitter laugh or a defensive one, but a genuine, joyful laugh that cuts through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. You know what, Richard? Michael says, his voice carrying clearly through the room. You're absolutely right. The entire room goes silent. Even Richard looks surprised. We did sign a contract, Michael continues, still holding my hand. A ridiculous, businesslike, completely unromantic contract that was supposed to solve both our problems with no messy emotions involved. I stare at him in shock, wondering if he's lost his mind. The problem with your plan, Michael says, turning to address the room, is that you can't contract love. You can't negotiate it or control it or make it disappear just because it's inconvenient. Love happens anyway. He turns back to me, and his expression is so tender it takes my breath away. Yes, we started with a contract, but what we have now is real. What we have now is a choice we make every day. And if you want proof of that... He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a familiar document, our original contract. This is what I think of business arrangements when it comes to my wife. And then, to my absolute amazement, he tears the contract in half. The room erupts into cheers and applause. Several people are crying, including Dad, who's beaming with pride. Even some of the stern board members look moved by Michael's gesture. Richard's face goes through several emotions: shock, anger, and finally defeat. Without another word, he turns and stalks out of the room. That was either very romantic or very stupid, I whisper to Michael as the applause continues. Probably both, he admits, pulling me closer. But I meant every word. I love you, Livia Sterling, contract or no contract. Livia Sterling, I repeat, testing out my new name. I like the sound of that. Good, he says, leaning down to kiss me again. Because you're stuck with it. Later, as we're saying goodbye to the last of our guests, Dad pulls me aside. I'm proud of you, sweetheart, he says, hugging me tight. You saved us all, not just financially, but emotionally. You brought love back into this family. I love you, Dad. Love you too. Now go start your new life. Michael and I escape to the bridal suite, finally alone after the most perfect, chaotic, wonderful day of my life. I'm sitting on the bed, carefully removing the dozens of bobby pins from my hair when Michael kneels down in front of me. What are you doing? I ask, laughing. Proposing to you properly, he says, pulling out a small velvet box I've never seen before. The first time was business. This time, it's real. Inside the box is a simple band with 3 small diamonds, nothing like the massive engagement ring I've been wearing. It's beautiful in its simplicity, personal in a way that makes my heart race. "Livia Sterling," he says, his voice soft and sure. "Will you marry me? For real this time. For love." "We're already married," I point out, but I'm crying again. "Marry me anyway. Every day. Choose me every morning when you wake up and every night when you go to sleep. Choose us." "Yes," I whisper, letting him slide the new ring onto my right hand, opposite the engagement ring. "Yes, to all of it." When he kisses me this time, it tastes like forever. Outside our window, New York glitters in the darkness, full of possibilities and promises. Somewhere out there, Richard is probably plotting his next move. Somewhere out there, the media is spinning stories about our dramatic wedding. But here, in this moment, with Michael's arms around me and our future stretching out before us like an unwritten story, none of that matters. We started with a contract, but we're ending with love. And that makes all the difference. 2 years later, the sound of laughter echoes through our home. Our real home, not the glass museum by the Hudson, but the brownstone in Brooklyn we bought 6 months after our wedding. It's smaller, warmer, filled with mismatched furniture we picked out together and photographs of our actual life instead of staged perfection. I'm in the kitchen, flour in my hair, and what I hope will eventually become chocolate chip cookies spreading across every available surface, when Michael walks through the door at exactly 6:17 p.m. He's earlier than usual, which means he's actually listening to my lectures about work-life balance. "Something smells." He pauses, taking in the disaster zone that was once our kitchen. "Ambitious." "I'm making cookies for the office party tomorrow," I say, attempting to wipe chocolate off my cheek with the back of my wrist. It's not going well. I can see that. He's trying not to smile as he surveys the carnage. "What happened to just buying cookies from that bakery you love?" "That would be cheating. I want to make them myself." I hold up a spoon covered in what might be cookie dough. "Want a taste?" He steps closer, but instead of taking the spoon, he cups my face in his hands and kisses me, tasting the chocolate directly from my lips. "Delicious," he murmurs against my mouth, and I laugh because he's such a shameless flirt, even after 2 years of marriage. "You haven't even tried the actual cookies yet." "Don't need to. Everything you make is perfect." Liar. But I'm grinning as I say it, because this everyday domestic chaos is everything I never knew I wanted. The timer dings, and I rush to pull the first batch from the oven. They're slightly lopsided and definitely not Pinterest-worthy, but they smell like home. "How was your day?" I ask as Michael loosens his tie and rolls up his sleeves, preparing to help with the cookie disaster. "Productive. The Seattle project got final approval, and the board meeting went smoothly." He starts gathering dirty mixing bowls. "Oh, and Richard Blackthorne's company filed for bankruptcy." I pause in my cookie removing. "Really? Really? Turns out that when you spend all your energy trying to destroy other people's happiness, you forget to pay attention to your own business." Michael's voice is matter of fact, but I can hear the satisfaction underneath. Karma has a way of catching up eventually. We work in comfortable silence for a while, Michael washing dishes while I attempt to salvage the remaining cookie dough. It's such a normal, married couple thing to do that sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. "Liv?" Michael's voice is softer now, and when I look up, he's watching me with that expression that still makes my heart skip. "Yeah? I have something for you. It's not my birthday or our anniversary or any other special occasion that I've forgotten about, right?" I mentally run through the calendar, panicking slightly. "It's Tuesday," he says, pulling a manila envelope from his briefcase. "Does there need to be a special occasion for me to give my wife a gift?" I take the envelope, suspicious. "What is it?" "Open it." Inside are legal documents, official-looking papers with lots of stamps and signatures. It takes me a moment to understand what I'm looking at. "Michael," I breathe, staring at the papers. This is the deed to your father's company. Full ownership, no debt, transferred to you. He's watching my face carefully. I know you've been worried about him retiring without a succession plan. Now you can take over when you're ready. Build it into whatever you want it to be. Tears blur my vision as I read through the documents. Ashworth Construction, the company my grandfather built and my father nearly lost, now legally mine to rebuild and reshape. I can't accept this, I whisper. It's too much. You're not accepting it. You're earning it. You've been working with your father for months, learning the business, modernizing their processes. This just makes it official. He steps closer, brushing a tear from my cheek. Besides, what's mine is yours, remember? That includes ridiculous gestures of love. This is more than ridiculous. This is everything. You're everything, he says simply. And I want you to have the world, Livia. Starting with your family's legacy. I set the papers aside and throw my arms around his neck, not caring that I'm getting flour and chocolate all over his expensive shirt. I love you, I say against his neck. I love you so much it's actually stupid. Stupid love is the best kind, he murmurs, holding me tight. We're interrupted by the timer again, and this batch of cookies is actually edible. We eat them warm from the baking sheet, standing in our messy kitchen, and I think about how different this is from those first careful, contracted meals we shared. Remember our first dinner together? I ask. You were so formal and intimidating. I was terrified, he admits. You were nothing like what I expected, and I didn't know how to handle that. What did you expect? Someone easier to compartmentalize. Someone who would play their role and not ask complicated questions. He feeds me a piece of cookie. Instead, I got someone who challenged everything I thought I knew about myself. Lucky you. Luckiest man alive, he agrees. Later, we're curled up on the couch, the overstuffed, impractical couch I insisted on buying despite Michael's protests about it not matching anything else. I'm reading while Michael works on his laptop, my feet in his lap, his free hand absently stroking my ankle. It's perfectly mundane and perfectly wonderful. Liv? Michael's voice interrupts my reading. What are you reading? I hold up the book, a new biography about female entrepreneurs. Research for when I take over the company. I want to understand how other women have built successful businesses. And I'm terrified and excited and completely overwhelmed by the possibility of it all. I close the book and look at him. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess it up? Then you'll figure it out as you go. That's what good leaders do. He closes his laptop and gives me his full attention. You saved your family once already, Livia. You can do it again. That was different. That was just survival. This is survival too, just a different kind. He pulls me closer until I'm curled against his side. You're going to build something amazing. I know because I've watched you turn a fake marriage into the most real thing in my life. But when did you become so wise? When I married someone who makes me want to be better than I thought I could be. We sit in comfortable silence for a while, and I think about the journey that brought us here. From that desperate morning when Dad told me about the bankruptcy, to the contract signing, to the fake dates and real feelings, to the wedding where Michael tore up our agreement in front of everyone. It feels like a lifetime ago, and yesterday all at once. Michael. Yeah? Do you ever regret it? The way we started? He's quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. I regret that you had to go through the stress of thinking it might not be real, he says finally. I regret that it took me so long to admit what I was feeling. But regret the contract itself? No. Because it brought us together, and I can't regret anything that led to this. He gestures around our slightly messy, perfectly imperfect living room. Besides, he adds with a grin, it makes for a hell of a how we met story. I laugh, because he's right. Our kids are going to be so confused when we tell them. Our kids? There's something in his voice that makes me look up at him. Hypothetical future kids. I clarify quickly. I mean, we've never really talked about Livia. He's smiling now. That soft, private smile that's just for me. I want everything with you. Kids, chaos, PTA meetings, little league games, the whole beautiful disaster of a family life. When you're ready. And if I'm never ready? Then we'll have an amazing life, just the two of us, and I'll spoil our friends' kids instead. He kisses the top of my head. Whatever you want, whenever you want it. We have time to figure it out. Time. It's funny how much that word has changed meaning. When we first signed the contract, 12 months felt like forever. Now forever doesn't feel like nearly enough. I love our life, I say quietly. Even the parts that are messy and complicated and nothing like what you planned. Especially those parts. Because the truth is, the best things in life can't be planned, or contracted, or negotiated. They happen in the spaces between what you expect and what you need. In the moments when you're brave enough to choose love over safety, connection over control. 2 years ago, I thought I was signing a business agreement. Instead, I signed up for the adventure of a lifetime. And every day I choose it again. Every day I choose him. Every day I choose us. The contract may be gone, but the love it accidentally created will last forever. And that's the most beautiful irony of all. The end.